story like the back of my hand.
Taxes are the only certainty. Well, 20% of people of society. And I have made it on my own in this world. Well, not to take care of time around a 2-year-old. I'm gonna start the old nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation. Well, let me talk a bit about the weather. You must admit it's not very clever. Don't get me wrong, it's not an anti-British song. Well, there is nowhere I would rather be wrong. I'm gonna start the old nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation. There are just a few things that I would like to say about the UK and how I think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up, but you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with the self-preservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And welcome, Justicios. We are back in full flight today. Everything is go, go, go. We're back based in Durham, so hopefully we got the tech problems of the last fortnight fixed. And my golly, have I got a panel to introduce to you tonight. I'm really excited about it. Of course, we have Paul, who is the boss. We know he's just the boss, and that's what we do as he says. I've got Laura. I always love it when Laura's on. Hiya, Laura. Oh, thank you, thank you. But today we have a legend of the miners' strike, a legend and powerhouse of the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign, and an all-round good guy and sort of king of the socialists. John Dunn, welcome to you, John.
It's a pleasure and an honour.
It's not, it's our honour. We've said this to you before. Tell us something about you. Tell people something about you, John.
I originate from Claycross. I was a counsellor on Claycross UDC when we all got surcharged for fighting back against Ted Heath. In fact, I have the dubious honour of being the youngest person in this country ever to get surcharged. I was only 22 at the time. I was a minor until British Coal decided to part with my services. I was seriously injured while picketing at Cresswell Colliery in April '84. I'm now actively a member and campaigner with the Albury Truth and Justice campaign. Before that, I campaigned for the Justice for Mine Workers campaign. I'm also trying to clear my name of two framed up convictions from when I assaulted a police truncheon with the back of my head.
Yes, you spoke about that at the Albury Truth and Justice rally, and yes, an awful lot of things there to catch up on and get righted. An awful lot of wrongs that need righting, and all the best with that. Okay, let's begin the show. Jacqueline, if I keep echoing, just can you comment in the chat, and then Paul will sort it out. Moment of the week. Laura, let's start with you. Moment of your week.
Well, it's really difficult because my moment of the week is the top story today, but something that did really boil my blood this week, and I believe it's an ongoing saga, but it was in the news again this week, was Robert Jenrick having those lovely paintings of Mickey Mouse and his gang painted over because it was far too welcoming for young children. I just think that is he's just cruelty personified, isn't he? And imagine that's how you decide to spend your time. That's how busy this guy is, that he decides that the most important thing he can do for this country is paint over some lovely pictures that were designed to make children feel a little bit better. I mean, oh God, Furious doesn't even cut it. I was so angry. Why? Why are these people in charge? What kind of Twilight Zone are we living in where these are the people who rule us? It's horrendous.
Yes. I mean, the thing was, I wonder what he said to his wife when he got home. Hey, you'll never guess what I've done today, darling. You know,
she must be so proud. And the thing is, he'd ordered it to be done previously, and he'd gone back to check it was done. It hadn't been done, so he'd ordered it again and was really angry about it because it hadn't been done. And how much spare time's this guy got? What is he doing? He's getting paid so much money, and like he's meant to help us run the country, and that is what he spends his time doing. Congratulations, Tories. Well done.
There's a village in Palestine, and they keep going and knocking it down because they say they're not supposed to be there, and so they wait till they've knocked it down, and then they just go and rebuild it and go back to living there. And if I was at that centre, I'd do the same. I painted everyone who was there, and as soon as he'd gone, I'd put them all back up again. And,
maybe spitting image pictures of him. Probably be less welcome.
Moment of your week this week.
Sorry, I missed that.
Moment of your week.
Oh, right. Well, obviously, like Laura, it's the main story later. It's obviously the Gala. But earlier in the week, I was contacted by a firm of solicitors. I'd given evidence earlier in the year on behalf of a group of people who've been tried for criminal damage for damaging a building that housed a weapons manufacturer that for Israel that's used against Palestinians, and they found out that the building was part owned by the Mine Workers Pension Scheme. So as a miner, I was privileged to be asked to give evidence, and it was an experience, shall we say. Unfortunately, I didn't get anybody off. But I must have done a good job because they've asked me to do the same on a second trial that's coming up soon. So I'm quite flattered to highlight the plight of the Palestinians in whatever way I can.
Yes, thank you so much for that. what's going on there is horrific, and sort of course, we have a government people who are trying to stop councils and charities deciding they don't want to buy things from Israel because they don't want the things produced in the settlements.
All these people did was spray red paint on the building. And I contrasted that with the weapons that are killing Palestinian kids and things like that, and said, that's criminal damage.
I mean, I don't know what you think about this, John, but I just feel that the rules that they're making about protesting, I mean, women would never have got the votes. The absolutely crazy rules about what you're not allowed to shout out loudly now, are you? Something like that.
I feel quite optimistic about that. I mean, there were laws that stopped the suffragettes. There were laws that got the Tolpuddle martyrs transported. And so this government didn't need any new laws. I can testify to the fact that when they want to crack down on you, they will, and in every way possible. But they don't do it because they're strong. They do it because they're afraid of us. And it's no coincidence that as the trade union movement wakes up from its slumbers, they're bringing in things like that. So I think we should look at it in that sense rather than think, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you. Paul, moment of your week.
It's kind of weird and boring, but I got my subject access request from the Labour Party back eventually. So that's arrived. I think it's about 8 months late. So I got that back, and I've been very bored reading it so far. It seems to consist of email chains from me that I've been involved in, but then someone else who's redacted at the top. And it was like just someone else. Oh, here's that email from you, and then the name blanked off. So someone forwarding to Labour North emails that Labour North are already copied into. So it seems that someone was grassing me up to something that they already knew was happening. So it's really weird. I haven't got down to anything really interesting yet, although I did find a really funny one where someone was redacted, and then underneath it said, "Thanks, Hannah," so they'd missed the redaction. And and also they've only redacted like certain people, where there's other people who I know would have wanted to have been redacted from that, who haven't been redacted, and it's absolutely messy. So yeah, I'm gonna have to sit down and have a really good read of how boring that is, unless someone else wants to volunteer to read the boring email chains from me and see if they've done anything really horrible.
It's the autobiography I'm looking forward to when you come up, My Life in the Labour Party by Paul Daly, and sort of a kiss and tell, but you can release names.
Again, I think people will realise how dull it all was, and like while they're sending these horrible, like it brought back quite a lot of memories, because it reminded me of when like the horrible old people who are now back in control of the Labour Party in Sedgefield had written to the Daily Mail saying that we were evil. And it's like, well, you're writing to the Daily Mail, and that kind of makes me think that you're wrong. Like, even though I'm quite heavily involved in that, but if I was outside looking in, I'd be like, why are you going to the Daily Mail over this? Why is that your newspaper of choice? Like, not even the Guardian, which is right wing enough, but the Daily Mail, that's where your contacts are. Absolutely hideous people.
As you're back next week, aren't you, Paul? As you read it, sort of, you must update us with the latest scandals coming out of this.
Yeah, I'll keep people up to date, but I don't know whether there will be. I don't think they'll have sent everything, because they seem to have included lots and lots of things in there. But I know that I'm mentioned a lot more than that. Like, I know that, so they've just picked and chosen. It's taken them 8 months to come up with I think it's about 256-page document on me. I'd be interested to find out, like, they had this dossier on me, and I haven't got that to that point yet. But how did they collect that dossier? How did they have that dossier if there's nothing in there? So if there's nothing in there about that dossier, I'm going to say this is incomplete, because I know you've sent me a dossier. How was that compiled? and that's what information that you're keeping on me, and you must have communicated it in some way, and there's nothing there. So it depends. There might be something there. So we'll see.
Yeah. Jacqueline Hemmings, when you say they went to the Mail, she thought the same about the mum who went to the Sun about the big presenter. Why that newspaper? Because they muckrake, Jacqueline. Okay, time to move on to the subject today.
Now it's time for the big story.
Now it's time for the big meeting, because the weekend I didn't go. I've never been. I'm ashamed to tell you this, but sort of I do know that it's a tremendous source of joy and pride to an awful lot of people. Laura, same question to all three people, by the way. I want your star moment of the gala for you, and I know what's going to happen. They're not going to have 2-star moments. Can I have just 2-star moments? But there we go. I want your star moment, and I want your main message. What message did you come away with for the future?
Oh, do you know, John, that is just like, you might as well ask me what my favorite song is. It's impossible. The day was just full, absolutely full of just amazing highlights for me. Um, I suppose if I had to pick a personal one, it was the first time since the Women's Banner Group started that I was able to march with my trade union, who I work for, and the Women's Banner Group. We kind of go in different ways, so I've always got to be all over the place, but we ended up coming together at the same time on the march. So it was absolutely lovely because I could just be with everybody. And just all the people who turn out, especially for Women's Banner Group. We don't like have regular meetings and things like that. It was set up that way, so because we're all busy and have a million things to do. But we always come together on that day, and just obviously I got there a bit late because I was working as well on the day. And everyone was wearing to go, and everyone was ready, and the flags were up, and the banner was up, and it was just I just love watching it. It makes me heart leap when I see all those amazing women coming together. They're all unbelievable, and they're all from completely different places, completely different backgrounds. You would never see them coming together, really, just in ordinary life. But this day, they're all the same. We're all just one big group, and I just love them so much. It was amazing.
And the message, did it inspire you? Did you come away sad, happy?
And I don't know if everybody else felt this way, but I felt a little bit more subdued this year than I have previously, and I think there was definitely a lack of hope, but not only that, a lack of teeth. And I've spoken to a few people about this. It was lovely. There's always amazing people that go, but there didn't seem to be any huge fight back. They didn't really feel like, the speeches, I didn't even sit and stay for the speeches. I was still there, but I was on the stalls and looking around, and they didn't seem to be, other than possibly Sarah Woolley, who's just incredible. I love her. I wanted somebody with a bit of passion, a bit of fight back, a bit of like, a few people sort of mentioned that Keir Starmer was a bit rubbish, but it was all a bit. I really wanted somebody to get up and just have a go at the whole establishment, and I felt like it was lacking that a little bit this year for me. But it was put together really well, and and everywhere you turn, there's somebody that you're desperate to say hello to and give a hug to. So it was beautiful for that.
I wondered whether it was the rain that had dampened it a little bit.
Well, there were this weekend. There were like 4 other events on. So it was the Tall Ships in Hartlepool was on, the big meeting was on. There was something in north of the Tyne. There was a festival there, and Sunderland Pride was on. So I think that, mixed with the weather forecast, probably did dampen people's spirits a bit. There was still a massive turnout, but it definitely wasn't as big as it had been. But I think it wasn't just the atmosphere, and it wasn't just the people. It was the choice of speakers, and even the speeches themselves. They were nice. They were really good. I really, appreciate everybody who was there. The bits I've heard, but I just wanted a bit more oomph, a bit more working class spirit, you know, and I felt like that was lacking a little bit.
Before I move on from you, just sort of, I mean, do you think this is anything to do with the fact that the fight in the Labour Party is lost, and and nothing's really got going out with the Labour Party to latch onto? Sort of, I just feel that the left are sort of wandering around in the wilderness, like the
Oh,
big Israel
absolutely.
in
Yeah.
the wilderness, just looking for a place to go at the moment. There's kind of
Yeah.
aimlessness about everything at the moment.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all with you, John. I think people are politically homeless at the minute. I don't think the Labour Party stands for anything that anybody would want a Labour Party to stand for. I think we've lost that fight. I think wasting your time in there now is just banging your head against a brick wall, and it's painful. Um,
We'll talk
but
about that in the next topic. Yes.
yeah, but I think, you know, with the different groups and the different organisations that are all sprouting out on the left, I think we just need to bring all those people together, because they're all amazing. They're all, obviously they've got split priorities because everybody's fighting for different things, because there's so many fronts for us to be fighting on. But if we could bring them all together under one umbrella, it doesn't necessarily have to be another party. We've seen that we can make change from being activists. But I think we just need something to galvanize our spirit again. I think that's what's needed.
We need Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy. John, moving on to you. Same question to you. What was your star moment of the gala for you? And what messages and feelings did you come out of the day with?
Well, the star moment wasn't me broken back and aching knees at the end. It's the only event, I think, where you can be absolutely knackered at the end, but elated at the same time. It always lifts me. I agree with Laura about the speakers, and I agree with yourself. It's, you know, it's lack of a focus of where we can go. But for me, it's a joyous day, and I just love the fact that it shows that even though the working class has almost been written out of history, we're still alive and kicking. And the fact that it's done in such a vibrant, energetic way, it celebrates our traditions, our history, and our fighting spirit. And I love seeing my old union's banners, you know, the ones that they've resurrected from long time back, and the emotion that brings out in me. And I spoke to some miners who'd gone for the first time, and they're almost in tears at seeing that. Now, these are men who got broken bones and faced up to police attacks, and they were so moved and so choked because it shows what we had, and it also shows what we'd lost. But there was a unique moment for me, because we got down to the field relatively early, and at that time the rain was a long way away and it was so hot. Me and Beverly went and sought some shade, and we were sat behind a building at the side of the river. And then three young women came up and sat at the back of us and were just talking away. And I just glanced, and they'd got emblems on the t shirt. So, out of interest, I just looked, and it said Sex Workers Union. And when we were leaving, I just said to them, I said, "Can I tell you how much I admire your bravery and what you're doing?" And they were overjoyed that somebody had spoken to them and told me about their cause. It's basically about legitimising what they do, about getting workers' rights for it, and getting the respect, because after all, it's work. It's what we all do or did, sell our labour, and you know, they're affiliated to the Bakers Union, which is probably the best union in the country. And I just give a big shout out to those brave young ladies.
Well done to them.
But the lessons, I think the message from it is that, like Laura said, we've got to come together. The left are too fragmented, you know, this phobia, that phobia, you're this, you're that, or the other. And I've always thought that we have to fight together on the 95% that we agree on, not these little fringe issues, to put it rather coarsely, that are used to divide us. You know, the ruling class aren't the ruling class by accident. They use divide and conquer in sometimes the most subtle ways. And so I think if we can realise that the fight for trans rights can go alongside the fight for women's rights, if the fight for the environment can go along for the struggle for socialism, because ultimately that's what we're talking about, a change of society that's run for us. And I also think because it's such a joyous occasion, too much of the left have become miserable bastards. And I'm sorry about using that word, but if they're not saying, oh, it's terrible, they're bringing in these laws, we've got all this austerity, they're saying, oh, and the world's going to burn up in X number of years. We've got to be saying, like we did in the 70s, that we have the solutions. It's a planned economy where we don't ravage the earth, where we use our resources cleanly and responsibly, and we build a world that works for us all. That's got to be our message, that we've got something positive, not doom and
Oh, we've lost
gloom.
John. Just 2 seconds. Laura, when you clip the podcast, that statement has to go out as a separate thing.
100%.
Thank you, John. That was just perfect. There's a whole load of absolutely lovely comments on here. Heather Wood is with us today. It's so exciting. And she says much the same as you, John. Good to see the folk I'm in constant touch with. They marched with us, Mary Lockhart and Jane with the RCN banner, our German friends with the FAB banner, Waspies, OTJC, all of us together, amazing. And that's it, that you come together. And there's all these other things to fight with. John, you're getting a lot of fan mail. Everybody thinks you're absolutely wonderful. They said, "Oh, that's exactly."
Can
Well
somebody
said,
tell the
John.
missus that?
Well said, John. They're all saying. Anthony Riley, absolutely, John. There needs to be a rallying of socialists from all walks of life. Neil Fairburn, remember being encouraged some years ago reading "No is not enough." A very positive message for activist groups wanting to come together. Thank you, Mia Mantry. Totally agree. I've spoken a lot here about the transphobia she's received over the years. Appreciate the solidarity. John is so right. A new party needs discipline. Now, many of the left think that that's wrong, but fighting on 4 or 5 agreed main policies is essential. Wonderful. Thank you for your comments, everybody. Oh, by the way, Neil Terry, who is a regular panelist, will kill me if I don't mention that he was the official photographer for the Durham Gala, and it's sort of very, very exciting and an honour to know him. I've inveigled him to do some work for me, but don't tell anybody. He wasn't right pleased about it. Paul Daly. Your moment of the gala and your message of the gala.
So I think for me it was brilliant to see good friends on the platform. So these weren't the speakers, but Stephen Guy, for example, really good friend of mine, in his roles with the Durham Miners Association, did a really incredible job. You know, like what they put on. It kind of sometimes you can detach yourself from what actually happens, because it's this huge event and your friends are putting it on, and that means a lot, and they're carrying on a tradition of like the people they cared about. And I think that's the thing that I took from it, because I took it from a different perspective this year. Usually I'm like on the gin and tonic at 8 a.m. and carrying a banner and doing all this stuff. This time I turned up, like didn't have a drink all day, took my kids, went on the little rides and stuff like that, nearly broke my back on those, because they just jerk you around. It's not like a big fun roller coaster or anything. It's just this is designed to break your bones. But yeah, so I had a different kind of day in looking at it from that perspective, seeing the scale of it, seeing everything that goes on, seeing all these brilliant people coming together, seeing people I haven't seen for ages. That was, for me, like, I know that's a collection of moments. Alan Margam as well, obviously. He did have a big go at Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer was invited, and people were like, oh, was he invited? Blah, 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 blah. Yes, he was, because that's their courtesy that they always extend. And he was busy. He was busy. He had a prior engagement, despite the fact everyone knows that that event is on the second Saturday of July every year. So it's not like, they didn't. They probably put it in the diary first, put it that way. So yeah, that was what I really took out of it as a big positive. There were a few negatives in there as well. I saw a few people cosplaying as left. You got people in the Labour Party tent. It was very interesting. The Keep Our NHS Public were told not to leaflet inside the Labour Party tent. I think if you want a message there, is it that they don't want to keep NHS public? They want to take it private? Perhaps. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't taken that to anyone to confirm that who did that and who told them not to, but I do know that Keep Our NHS Public were told not to leaflet in there. That's a real disappointment, but the Labour Party is heading that way anyway. I did see the prospective parliamentary candidate for Sedgefield lurking around the Labour Party tent. I think it's extremely hypocritical that he tried to sell a lot of public assets to the private sector, give them to the private sector in the housing department, and now works as a director of a housing company. I don't think this is the day for the director of a housing company. I think it's the day of the working class, and hanging around there and cosplaying as left is very, very annoying. But plenty of people have the gall to do that. That's how they end up in positions in the Labour Party. So there's that kind of stuff that was quite annoying. And again, the message that I took out of it was the Conservatives have broken the country, and the people who have similar policies to the Conservatives, such as the Labour government before that, not quite as extreme as the Labour government now, but the Labour Party at the moment, but their policies were quite extremely right wing as well. But it's the Labour Party who've killed hope that it can get any better. So I think at the moment people have accepted their lot in life, and they're like, well, if you look at the pay award for teachers in the public sector, they are the Conservatives have said we won't accept the independent peer review body recommendations, even though there's a rebellion going on within the Tory party. And the Labour Party haven't said that's disgraceful, that's an independent review, it's not even good enough, but that's an independent review, you should be given that at least. They've said, oh no, we agree. And that kind of thing kicks people's hope. And there's a lot of people still associating with the Labour Party, and I don't know if it's Stockholm syndrome, I don't know what is going on there, but people seem to think that they can change the Labour Party from within, or that it's worth still fighting for. And I think until the left get over that idea that it is neither left wing nor hopeful nor any of those things that you would hope, we're going to be stuck for a little while. I did enjoy seeing the Palestine Solidarity Campaign flying their banner high, walking with Jewish Voice for Labour. I did think that was a very proud moment for them, and they got a big cheer, and that was quite nice as well to see that people aren't accepting the ludicrous narrative that people would say, for example, Ken Loach is an anti-Semite, which has been said this week, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while. But that was nice to see them receive such a warm welcome, and it was lovely talking to Lesbian and Gay Support the Miners and the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign when we were going around the little tents, and some lovely people in there. That was what it's about, but I would like to see a little bit more direction. I don't think it was necessarily the speaker's fault. You had Zara Sultana on there. I actually didn't hear her speech. I was busy with my kids. She would have went down really, really well a couple of years ago, but I think everyone's now thinking, come on, man, this is getting silly. You can't speak out from within the Labour Party and be okay. Your card is marked. You will be taken out when they think that their opportunity is there. And I think that's why it was a bit subdued. because there isn't any hope. There is hope. There is hope to be found, but there's too many people tied to the Labour Party to remain hopeful within it.
There's a lovely comment by Heather Wood, which redresses any sense of downness you might have had about the gala. She says, the big meeting is like Christmas morning. What a lovely, lovely statement, Heather. God bless you.
That's the beauty of it as well, when you see people like Heather and you see the Women's Banner Group and you see All Grief, Truth and Justice, and they're all marching together, and there were so many lovely people all in a little group together around there, and I was walking up and down and I was seeing different people. That was really good, and I got to have some photos of my kids with like Ken Loach and that kind of thing. That was very, very nice.
I think I've never been to the gala, but as a Durham person, just so proud of that event. It's the biggest left-wing political gathering in Europe, and it's the working people coming together and standing together and saying, we are here. And it's the undefeatable voice of true Labour. And well done to all you people who go. I'm slightly autistic, John. I just can't cope with the crowds. It would be my worst nightmare going there to the gala. But sort of yous who go, absolutely fabulous. Thank you. A lot of the things we've talked about, we're just about to talk about again. But let's see what we say. I titled this Stuper's Labour instead of Starmer's Labour because, oh my golly, they've done some things in the last couple of weeks, haven't they, really? John, does Labour have anything of any worth to offer voters?
Simple answer, nothing at all. It's it's the dead parrot of a party. I refer to it as the party formerly known as, and we had just last week pledging that they're going to continue austerity. Remember years ago, Rachel Reeves. I've just done a little bit of sick in my mouth just mentioning the name, to be honest. We're bragging that they're going to be tougher on benefits than Tories. There are nothing but red Tories now, and all that'll happen, I think, is that things will go from bad to worse. They'll continue with the same policies as the Tories, and hopefully that's going to spur the trade union movement on to actually disaffiliate from them, because it's a party that was formed by the union and actually has a history, not just recently, a history of selling out trade union struggles. So no, they've nothing whatsoever to offer the voters, except I suppose they're saying we're not the Tories. Well, I've got news for anybody tempted to vote for that shower. They are the Tories.
I mean, I had a backup question that sort of, where are they going wrong? Tell us where you think they're going wrong, and sort of kind of, while you're telling us, John, are they capable? Could they put it right? What would they have to do to put what they're doing wrong right? I mean, if they get damn, what would you want them to do to put right? Where are they going wrong, and how might they put it right?
Well, how long have you got about
as long as you want, John, as long as you want.
On everything? The focus group led, and focus groups are actually rigged. I got a friend who sits on them, and they briefed about the answer the client wants from the beginning. They've expelled just about every decent activist that they've ever got, and as I say, the sole message is we're not the Tories, and they're hoping to ride to power on pure hatred for the Tories, which is justified. But by no means should anybody think that these will ever do anything right. I mean, the Blair government was bad enough, and that ended up with the disaster of 1 million murdered Iraqis. But this lot aren't even offering us any crumbs off their lavish uh, tables. You know, they're corporatized. They're taking corporate donors. A lot of them who are part of the Israel lobby, and the only way I don't think they can redeem it. I don't think they're salvageable, even under Corbyn, who was no revolutionary but was a genuine socialist who invigorated a movement that could have been transformed into something. Even under him, the Labour Party officialdom was actively working against him. I'm proud to say that after 51 years, they expelled me. Unfortunately for them, I'd left the year before. That's how capable this shower are. And you know what can they do to put it right? I could just use two words, one which ends in off, but I won't. The best thing they could do is to fade away into oblivion, and it's up to us not to go looking for some messiah who's going to form a new party, because that's not the way it happens. We've got to build the movement from the grassroots up. We've got to work in unions, in community groups, and we've got to give up on Parliament. It's a sham. It's a charade. Watch Prime Minister's Question Time if you can.
Embarrassing.
And it's awful, you know. Hooray Henry's going yah and things like that. That's not going to bring us anything. It was never designed to do that. It was designed to maintain the status quo. So it's in the streets, it's in direct action that we've got to start expressing ourselves. And we've not got to be worried about anti-trade union laws and anti this. You know, I've had a near-death experience at the hands of a copper, so I think if I can survive that, getting the odd ASBO or whatever, I'm not that bothered. And at my age, I've got no to lose, have I? So let's rise up. But the important message is let's make sure that next time we win.
Just one more thing before I go to my other panelists, John. You a number of occasions you've mentioned this is the opportunity for the unions. This is where we need the unions to step up. I mean, talk to us more about that, about what you want the unions to do, where you want them to go, how you see them filling this gap on the left.
Well, I think I can imagine a scenario when within a year or two of an extreme right-wing Starmeroid government that the unions will seriously talk about disaffiliating. Unite are winning disputes hand over fist. They've secured hundreds of millions of pounds for their members in local disputes. And these are the things we've got to shout about, because people I've been looking at Facebook and comments, and because Unite have decided to stay affiliated to the Labour Party, but to pay the bare minimum. That is the important bit. And also a tremendous resolution. They are not going to fund any councillors that vote for cuts. So things like that are happening. The Bakers Union, Ian Hodson and Sarah Woolley are good friends of mine. They've disaffiliated after what Starmer did to Ian Hodson. So that's the beginning. And we've got to make sure that we put pressure on the leaders we've got inside the movement. And when they don't deliver, we've got to get rid of them. The Secretary of Unite is paid of Unison, is the highest paid trade union leader. She's paid about £140,000 a year and they couldn't get even enough of their members to vote to take industrial action to back up the RCN. These people are just creaming it off at our expense. So we want proper rank and file organisations springing up. We want to be active in our union branches. It's not as easy as I was, because there aren't many unions that are locally based anymore, and people have to travel to get the meetings. So we've got to do things like that. It's not going to be easy. We've got to start again. When Keir Hardie decided, to break away from the Liberals, it was literally a lone voice, and he helped create via the Independent Labour Party and the Labour Party, as I called it, as I refer to it as it was then. He created that, but he didn't do it in isolation. He was a man born out of struggle. He was a member of the working class, and he worked amongst it. There used to be 100,000 people would walk up to 20 miles to hear him speak. So now we've got to get off social media and stop being social media warriors as much. Still use it by all the means, but whenever there's a struggle in your locality, support it. Get on the picket lines, get on in them community groups and start fighting back. It's the only way we can do it. It's the movement, not a messiah.
Thank you. Spot on. Thank you so much for those comments. A lot of enthusiasm on the chat. Everybody loves you, John. Hit the nail square
Very
on the
much.
head, they say.
Not according to
We're not going to invite you again. You're too
again.
popular. Jacqueline Hemmings didn't like Reeves trying to accuse Ken Loach of anti-Semitism. What can we do? A name I can't read. Get rid of the front bench. Get rid of the people who conspired against Corbyn. Neil Terry, they've nothing for people to vote for them. Jane Strange, who is a regular panelist on the show, she's an amazing woman. I think Labour is still less bad than the Tories, but they're letting us down badly and draining the life out of the left. I think that's a really clever comment. Jacqueline Hemmings lists the people she wants rid of. Don Thomas, get out on the picket lines. Yes, we had a lot of enthusiasm for going on picket lines when it all started, and that's died off a bit, hasn't it? 100%, John. Thank you, everybody, for your lovely comments. Paul, in the last month, Labour's systematically gone through cancelling all its promises. I mean, they've just systematically cancelled everything they promised. Why are they doing that?
Because they're liars. It's plain and simple. It's like Starmer made loads of pledges to get the left to vote for him, got in, and then decided he was right wing. He was always right wing. He's been more honest now. And every time he makes a pledge, he's like, actually, I don't really like that. So I think he probably comes out and says, this might play well in the media. And then for some reason he decides to roll back. And I think that's what he truly is. So I think that Starmer, in another life, in another reality, is sitting in a pub somewhere, whinging with his right-wing mates after a game of golf, and whinging about all things left, and whinging about tree huggers like he whinged about this week, because he was saying he hates tree huggers, according to Ed Miliband. And, that's not the language of someone who should be a Labour Party leader, going around and saying they hate tree huggers. What in the world is he talking about? He ran someone over on a bike because he was driving his Chelsea tractor around London. The media let him off scot-free for that. He was late for a tailor's appointment and knocked someone off. I think he's probably got a drink problem because of the state of, his complexion and those things. I think a lot of people on the Labour right have a huge drink problem. Not just the Labour right. There's lots of people with huge drink problems. But, they're always drunk. And I've always seen them, it's always talking about, let's go and have beers, let's go and get drunk, blah, blah, blah. There's this weird, kind of culture going on with them. So why he's rolling back on promises, I kind of got off topic a little bit there, because this is who he really is. He really is a right-wing man. He's got Mandelson in his corner. They don't seem to have a problem with Mandelson's connections to actual Jeffrey Epstein. but they do have a problem with the way that Jeremy Corbyn pronounced Jeffrey Epstein. Didn't he pronounce it Epstein? Epstein. No, sorry, you put a in there. And that was apparently a huge problem because it was implying that he was Jewish, and he is, but I don't get it. And then I think the other thing that we've got to look at as well is the relationship the Labour Party have with Israel. And let's say the most influential person, apart from Peter Mandelson in the Labour Party at the moment, is Luke Akehurst. Luke Akehurst works for a company called We Believe in Israel, which is an Israeli lobbying firm. Now, how is that not a conflict of interest? I don't understand how working for another government, another country, is not a conflict of interest whilst dictating policy of a political party in the UK. And I don't care which country that is, like any country. Imagine if it was like, oh yeah, we believe in Iran, or we believe in literally any country, Ireland even. You know what I mean?
Russia.
Russia, yeah, any country, Ukraine. You know, these are things. They are there to represent the UK, not to represent Israel. And I don't know why the people are allowed to just say, well, that's okay, because I think, there's a huge double standard going on. Like, he's able to dictate the policy of the Labour Party. He's an extremely right-wing individual. He set out his policy. He clearly works for Israel. That's what he works for. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't pretend to work for someone else. And this is why we're seeing all these very, very strange things, these strange comments about anti-Semitism, which are anti-Semitic in themselves, because they're saying, oh, well, if you criticise Israel, if you criticise the actions of the Israeli government, that's anti-Semitic. I would absolutely refute that, given that Jewish people are no more responsible for the state of Israel than any other individual. It's not because they're Jewish that Israel do these awful things. It's because they're an awful right-wing government who are pushing apartheid. That's not a Jewish quality. You know what I mean? So like we're in this bizarre world where Labour just do whatever they want, do whatever right-wing thing they want, and they get let off scot-free, and I'm a bit tired of it.
Laura, last question. We're going to be stuck with a pro-austerity, neoliberal, anti-redistribution, privatising Labour government. They're going to win, and they're going to come in and start doing those things. Will this be a good thing for the left or a bad thing?
Well, it depends. I suppose it depends how you look at it. It's not going to be a good thing for anybody, actually, because I think what we've got to accept is that there is no political left now. There is no political left in politics. There are politically left individuals, of course, like Zara Sultana. There's a handful of them that are obviously left, but they'll never get their way. They get told what to vote for, they get told when to abstain. Even some of the most left-wing Labour Party MPs have been abstaining this week. So there isn't a political left. So when the Labour Party do get in, and I think they probably will, it's just another Tory government. And that's no good for anybody, left or right. The right wing might convince themselves that it's good for them, but actually, the only people that a Conservative government is good for is a Conservative government and their friends. We've been talking a lot on this show about how politics is broken. The Conservatives broke politics. No, they didn't. It's absolutely perfect. It is running smoothly, exactly how they want it to. It's just not the politics we would want. And what it means is that they get every single thing their way. They get all the money, they get all the decisions, they get all the power. And the Labour Party are just going to be doing the same thing under the guise of, well, we've got to get the Tories out, so we're going to play every single game we can to get them out, and then we'll fix things. But we need to be wiser than that. We need to learn the lessons that we've been learning.
The question I was asking is that, do you have any hope that when this comes about, people will eventually flock on to what John was saying, and the fact that this is not the answer, more of the same is not the answer. We need a change. We need socialism. Or do you think that sort of they'll just grasp power and hang on to it for, as people are saying, 2-3 parliaments?
I think they could very well do that, but I do think there is going to be some hope that comes out of it. Yeah, I think people will, if that happens, I think people will quickly realize that it is more of the same, but then that quickly disenfranchises people from politics because they go, well, they're all the same. Actually, they're not all the same. It's just all the decent people have been kicked out of politics and there isn't a home for them. So exactly like John was saying, we do need to be working on the grassroots. We need to be community organizers. We need to, spread. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of us. There's not of them. We just need to be coming together and having those conversations and fighting on the 95% of topics that we agree on. I think, yes, a Labour government could push us to do that, but I'd argue that we should have been doing it years ago, and we need to be doing it now. We don't need to wait for Tory Mark II.
Thank you. Wow, hey, what a wonderful panel. Last question. I'm going to sing to you. I love singing to people, and it goes like this. If I had $1 million, if I had $1 million. Not quite the question, but the question to my panelists, and we are running out of time, people, so it's going to have to be brief. If you had £100,000, what would you do with it? I'm going to add to make the world a better place. Sort of, I'd spend it on booze and cigarettes. Is not a satisfactory answer. Sort of, if you had £100,000, how would you put it to use? It's a very sophisticated and revealing question. I'm going to start with Paul. What would you spend it? 2 minutes you've got. How would you use it?
It's not really that much, is it? Like, if you really want to change the world, it's a very limited amount. I think I would spend that very limited amount of money on independent media because there's so many people doing such good things in independent media, and it is so underfunded. So you see these hugely funded, like, billionaire corporations that are putting out their own news and their own agenda, and that's kind of dictates everything, and people are sending out press releases to the BBC and what have you, and they're saying they're kind of saying, well, these are the news stories of the day picked from press releases sent to them by big corporations, big agencies and stuff. We need to get away from that. We need to have independent media funded. I actually really don't care like whether that's like left-wing media or what. It's the independence that's important. You'll find that the big right-wing ones have a lot of funding as well, like the likes of GB News or the controversial ones in the USA. They are really, really heavily funded, and there's not much going on the left at all. On the reasonable, like there'll be people who identify maybe not as left-wing, but will have an opinion, who are independent, who bring something to the conversation, and you can maybe talk to them and agree to disagree, that kind of thing, and have a real debate. Whereas at the moment, the mainstream media, it's just like, this is the opinion that we have that is now a fact. If you disagree with that, you are wrong and you will be ostracized and cancelled. Independent media needs a greater voice, so support the IMA.
Yes, save to saying anything at the end of the show. Laura, number 2, your 2 minutes. What would you spend your £100,000 on to make the world a better place?
Honestly, it is just such a tiny amount of money compared to what we need. I'm not going to fund any NHS or education with that. I'm not even. And which food bank would you send it to? There's millions. So, I mean, it might cover me energy bills, possibly. I don't know. But to make the world, damn it, Paul, that was a really good answer. Good, I didn't think of that. I honestly don't know. I guess I'd give it to community groups who were trying to do good things in the local area, and grow from there. Hopefully, trying to source other funding from other places because it isn't a lot of money. It sounds a lot, and I wouldn't say no to it if anybody wants to give me that amount of money. But you're not going to save the world with that. Unfortunately, we are a capitalist society at the minute, and we need money to make things change. So yeah, I find some local groups that really needed help, groups that look after other people who are less fortunate or are trying to protect people who need protection. And I'd give it to them to do their work.
I mean, one thing I realised is that since in my 70 years, I've given away about £100,000 over the years in dribs and drabs, and I haven't really thought about, you just give away need, but you've not really thought about, placing your money in a place where it will do good. You just sort of react as things happen. It's John. If you had £100,000, how would you spend it to make the world a better place?
I'll be honest, I've already spent 20 quid of it. I was so nervous about coming on this show, I had to buy a bottle of vodka to but obviously, I'd give our campaign some of it. But in my role with the Orgreave campaign, I have the honour and the privilege and the pleasure of working with lots of other campaigning groups. To name but a few, Grenfell, Spy Cops, those brave women, the Blacklist Support Group. So I'd spread it out as much as I could amongst those. I'd also give a wedge to the Maras to make sure we keep that gala going. I'd chuck a few bob if we had a real socialist candidate standing against the party formerly known as locally. But I'll tell you something, somebody who deserves a good wedge of it, and that's somebody you all know, I'd give a good wedge to Joe Solo, because he works on behalf of so many great causes and campaigns. Yeah. He could do far more with that than I ever could. And if anybody wants to check Joe Solo out, just look him up. He's a fantastic friend. He's a fantastic musician. If you imagine Billy Bragg without being a pompous arsehole, you've got Joe Solo. He's a top man. He's a hero of mine. So yeah, he'd get a good bit of it.
Yeah.
So much. Some lovely comments from people. I'm a bit upset with Peter St. Clair, who said he'd just get out of England. Where is there to go? Hungary? Going to go to Hungary? France?
What do we have to do as trade unionists now to get shipped off to Australia?
So you can go to Australia. They're trying to headhunt people. Neil Terry asks how Paul had 1 million and you only had 100,000. No, they've all had the same amount. There's a sort of Anthony Riley, open a travelling socialist help group. Help spread the word of socialism via a help bus. That's it. Oh, Jacqueline Hemmings is a true socialist. If we all had £100,000, she said we could pool our resources. Some really Strange points out that you can join socialist think tank for free, but I'm sure if you got £100,000 out there, they wouldn't say no to 100,000.
Right.
That is the end of our show. What a privilege it is for me to sit and ask the questions to these amazing people. Thank you, Paul, the boss as always. Thank you, Laura, always that shining light in your eyes and the enthusiasm. But John, it's just been such a privilege of us to listen to you today. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for taking part.
Can I just say thanks for the invite? It's a real honour. I love this show, and keep it up. That's all I can say.
Oh, thanks, John. That really means a lot.
Necessary message, to tell you the truth, John. Thank you very much indeed. And now what happened? Oh, John, now what happens is I hand over to Paul and he'll witter on for a sort of... Just try and put a big smile on your face while he gets it over with, and then we all go home. To everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being here. Next week, we've got the team. It's Paul, Laura, and Jane. I think it's the last one before the summer holidays, so don't miss that. Because I've got some great things happening on that show. And thank you for listening in. Thank you for your comments on the comments. It's just so lovely to see everybody interacting with the show. Paul, your turn now.
Support independent media, support Socialist Think Tank, do all those things. If we can club together, we might be able to get 100,000. To be honest, like if there's enough of us to club together, we've got numbers, they've got big bank accounts. That's the difference. I know we're all struggling at the moment, but like, you know, if we can share things as well, like sharing knowledge is as important as giving people money. And giving people a platform. I think that's the important thing. Stick together, do those nice things. I'm really surprised no one on the panel suggested assassins with £100,000. But, you know, I'm glad none of us did because we're good people. But, you know, I did think that might come up. Anyway.
About that.
Yeah, well, some of us are keeping our options open.
Thank you so much. Thank you to John, presenter John Clare, for doing the show, because he thanks us every week and he does such an amazing job, and it is really, really easy to do a good job on this show because of the work you do beforehand, reading through things and everything like that. So it's huge for us. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for commenting as well, because it's a huge part of the show. And we will see you all soon. Take care, everyone.
God bless.
Keep the red flag flying here.